The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition or give any medical or legal advice.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Well, thank you, John Cleese. Wow. Boy, it's so hard to, even come up with a good show after listening to that. Oh, man, he is one of the best comedians out of the UK that probably ever came out. Anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about, ghosts in Gettysburg with two great people right after this.
Please check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Also, if you want to keep our show free of advertising, just hit the donate button. Give a buck or two. Remember, all prior shows are always free to listen to. We at Night Dreams Talk Radio thank you for your support.
Well, Don and James, are you still there?
Yep.
Yes,
sure,
I'm here.
Well, how you guys both doing tonight?
Doing well.
Not bad, trying to weather through a little bit of flu, but I'm getting better.
Okay, James, give it about a count to three before you say anything, for you guys don't walk on top of each other. When you get two people on, give it a couple seconds there, and then we won't be walking on top of everybody. Don, why don't you tell everybody who you actually are, what you did in the past, and what got you into writing books about ghosts?
Well, I am a longtime journalist. I was editor of the Bryan Times daily newspaper for many years. Semi-retired fairly recently. I still do a little bit of work with the paper, but I've covered all sorts of news features. Like I say, edited the paper. I've written history books going back for, nearly 25 years now. And at one point, if you would have told me that I was going to write about the paranormal, I would have told you that you were off your rocker. I had some experiences that really caught my attention, and I shared some of these with my coworkers at the paper and some friends and family, and they kept telling me, you need to write about them. And I was almost dragged kicking and screaming into writing a book about the paranormal, treating it, like I would anything as a journalist.
Oh, wow. And, I think the last time we had you on your show, I got to ask you a question. You were remodeling an old house, weren't you?
Yes. As a matter of fact, we're still working on it. We're living here. I have my home office is here in the building, actually in a very active part of an active house.
Now, if I remember right, you had tools and stuff on a ladder, and you go in there next morning to work on it, and the stuff disappeared, and you had to hunt for it.
Yeah, that particular story, a friend was helping me do drywall on the ceiling where there was water damage. The room, it's an 1835 house. This is in the old portion, and the room was 6 inches different in width from front to back. So I had held up a T-square and a tape measure and told my friend, I said, obviously they didn't have these when they built the house. When we came back the next morning, the T-square and the tape measure were laid smack in the middle of the floor in the newer 1860s part of the house.
Oh, wow. Now, has things still been going on like that, or did it only happen one time?
No, it is still active. We often hear footsteps, especially at night. Sometimes plain as day, you will hear somebody coming down the stairs when no one's there. It really surprises people who are visiting when some of these things happen, but my wife and I are quite used to it.
You're braver. You're braver than me because, I took a little break, 16 years break out of broadcasting. Doing a talk show and, playing records and all that stuff, you kind of get burned out. So, back in, I think around, mid-90s, I took like a 16-year break out of broadcasting. And I managed a building in Tacoma. It was a professional camera store. And that thing was haunted. I'd be there, late at night working on cameras because I also was trained as a technician. And, same thing. There was the building originally was a hotel back in the 1870s. Actually, it was a brothel. And some strange things were happening. The whole time I was general manager, employees would quit because they wouldn't go down to our stockroom, which was in the basement, because they swore it was haunted. And some of these guys were like Navy SEAL, Rangers, a chief bosun mate who served on submarines and all that stuff. Yeah, and I started thinking, how frenzies go. People tell other people and, the rumors get going. Because I didn't happen to me to the end of the 16 years I was there. I think I was there like 15 years. And then all of a sudden my office was actually downstairs next to the staircase. And I would hear footsteps. At first, it was like only one footstep going up, and I'd run out there and it was nobody there. The doors were all double locked, so I know nobody could get in, including the owners. And then about a month later, it started going multiple footsteps. And then it got so bad, it was like footsteps and muffled talking. And that's the next morning I said, you know what? It's time I go back into broadcasting. And that was the end of my job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll hear voices, sometimes clear, usually female voices, but there are times that I've awakened in the middle of the night to hear a muffled conversation in the guest room across the hall.
Now, Don, I got to ask you, when you started remodeling, did you notice the more activity? Did it increase as you were doing remodeling?
Yes, and I have found since we have been living here, we'll sometimes take breaks from the work, and the work actually does cause an uptick in the paranormal, especially when we have work crews or people in doing work. They've experienced a number of things.
Well, Don, did you ever have any of the work crews get so nervous they didn't want to come back and go in your house?
I haven't had that. I had one gentleman was extremely angry because I had not warned him that the building was haunted. He was on a step ladder. They were actually putting in furnace ductwork, and somebody pulled on his shirt tail to get his attention. He had on a flannel shirt, and no one was there. And I came out after work. They were still working, and he laid into me. His boss then told him, well, yeah, the place is haunted. He thought I should have warned him.
Well, I tell you that. You know what I would have said to you? I would have said, you know what? I want my money, and I'm gone.
Yeah, he came back. They finished the job.
Wow. Well, do you have any input on that one, James?
Yeah, I don't know. What do? You give a disclaimer, oh, yeah, it's haunted. You may be touched or talked to or something, but there's not much you can do about it. I mean, first of all, what are you going to, you're not going to tell somebody, hey, it's haunted, so beware. I do know a lot of states, though, when you sell a house, you have to tell them if your house is haunted, but not everywhere. Every state's different.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I've done some writing for some realtor magazines on that topic since my first book came out, and there is a lot of interest in that area.
Well, I would want to know. If I bought a house, I would want to know if it's haunted or if somebody was murdered in that house. I would never buy a house that somebody was murdered in.
Well, that all started in New York in 88 or 89. There was a house that was sold that was haunted. The owner didn't say nothing, and the person who bought it took it to court, and it's a landmark case. But the ironic part was it got so popular from being haunted, it tripled the money when they sold it because everybody wanted a haunted house.
That's what I have been told, that actually it enhances the value.
Well, not for me, it wouldn't, I'll tell you that.
Not for Gary.
No. No. It is funny, guys. You can sit there And you can talk about UFOs nowadays to people, or you can even, like I was earlier today, talking about Bigfoot. And people actually take you serious. But yet, sometimes when you start talking about hauntings, like where I used to work at, I talk about it, to friends. And they look at me like, what are you smoking, Gary?
Well, that's what I can't understand. How do you get to pick and choose which paranormal thing is, oh, yeah, that's legit, and the other one isn't? I mean, how do you believe in a Bigfoot or aliens and maybe not spirits? Or how do you pick and choose that? I mean, I don't know.
Well,
as long as the haunting stays out of my house, I'm happy.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, that's one thing that I have found. When I wrote my first paranormal book, I met a ghost at Gettysburg. I was very, I guess, nervous about what the reaction would be. If I go to give a talk on the book, are people going to laugh me out of the room? But I have found that my background as a journalist makes people pause and pay attention. And I have had very few people really be skeptical or give me a hard time. There are some notable exceptions, but they're few and far between.
Right. Well, I'm sure everybody in Gettysburg, most people in Gettysburg, they're used to the spirits because they're just everywhere.
Well, I asked you too, Don, what vintage was that house built?
1835 is the old portion, and it has quite a history. It was built by a War of 1812 veteran. He was a judge. He would found a town, then move on to a wild area, found another town, and the last town he founded is a little burg called Pulaski, just a half mile from here. He had a log cabin there. He had this brick house built. He died about 10 years after the house was built, but it has been an underground railroad station. As we're about 99% sure. They had to be careful in the day because of the fugitive slave law, but lots of evidence. People who owned the house were active in the Underground Railroad. Old-timers years ago gave verbal accounts that this was a stop.
Oh, wow.
And four Civil War soldiers grew up here, too, who did not make it home.
Well, maybe they made it home afterwards. That's the scary part. Now, I got to ask you a question. At the age of that house, it was quite common. Two things was happening. After somebody passed, they would put their body, in a coffin in the parlor, for a couple days while everybody, did their wake thing and come and visit and gave respects. And then they had their little luncheon type of thing. The other thing is, doing a lot of research, I find